Sunday, January 27th, 2008, and that means it's Holocaust Memorial Day. The last 2 or 3 years I've been on holiday, not to locations with beaches. I've been to cities in Central to Eastern Europe, and so I've been in places where World War II very much happened, and the final solution took place. In 2005 I went to Prague. Now the distinction of Prague is that Prague is one of the few cities in Europe where the Germans did not destroy synagogues. They were going to make it like a museum of a forgotten race. So I visited the synagogues of Prague. I also went to Theresienstadt. Theresienstadt is not a concentration camp. It was a holding camp, really. Jews would go to Theresienstadt and stay there for a while, and then go from there to concentration camps. And the Nazis were very devious, and they gave the impression that this was a place where the Jews would go and they would be able to run things themselves, and the Red Cross were given access to Theresienstadt, but it was, of course, it was all a fraud. 2006 I went to Berlin, and I visited, amongst other places, the Wannsee Villa, which is where a meeting was held, the Wannsee Conference, where the Nazis decided who exactly would be classified as a Jew. In other words, if you had how many Jewish grandparents you'd have, what would they do to Jews who are married to Christians, etc., etc. And then, most importantly, last year I went on holiday to Krakow in Poland, and I visited Auschwitz. And visiting Auschwitz is a very powerful experience. To stand in a gas chamber is, well, you can imagine. And then seeing the displays of all the human hair and spectacles, suitcases, artificial limbs. Yes, I wouldn't do it again, but I'm pleased that I have done it. Anyway, this year, to celebrate Holocaust Memorial Day, my uncle, who I went to Krakow and Auschwitz with, phoned me up earlier this week and said, if you got time, there's a fantastic exhibition on at Liverpool Town Hall. And I went there, and it was wonderful. I went on Friday. It was called Respectacles, and the exhibition was about the final solution, in particular Auschwitz. There were a lot of modern photographs of Auschwitz by a Liverpool photographer who's been there many times. And what I particularly like there is when we visited Birkenau, which is just a mile or two from, it's an extension of Auschwitz, much bigger. There was a group of Jews, Israelis there, and so as we were going around the centre, we could see this huge Star of David flag waving, and a lot of the people had the Star of David on their back, and there was a photograph of that, and I would have quite liked to have, if they'd had it in postcard form, I would have bought it, but I didn't want to spend £20 on it. A local school had been asked to do pictures on the theme of the Holocaust, but the centrepiece of the exhibition was, just as in the Auschwitz, you've got displays of all these artifacts, personal possessions. They had a display of spectacles in a ballroom, nice lighting, so it caught the spectacles, but they weren't spectacles from Auschwitz. They weren't old ones from 1940. These were new spectacles, And what was going to be done at the end of the exhibition was that they were going to be sent to the developing world, where spectacles and short supply. So you had a huge mirror at each side of the room, which meant if you stood in the middle, looking, you could see a mirror reflecting a mirror, so it seemed to go on to infinity. And representation of the rail track that brought people to Auschwitz, and then a mound of spectacles, and then spectacles laid out. And you had the words respect and hope on the wall. And although the exhibition is primarily about the Holocaust, it was also making the point that similar things do still happen today. They mentioned specifically Rwanda, but also the phrase ethnic cleansing has come into the language in recent years. What happened in Yugoslavia was terrible, so it was asking people to reflect on what has happened and be vigilant to make sure, well, not to turn the television off when you see killing taking place far away, to try to get our leaders to do something about it. With the theme being spectacles, famous people had been asked to donate spectacles, and so in display cabinets you had spectacles from Tony and Sherry Blair, Yoko Ono, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe, Elton John, Bono, Jerry Springer, and a number of other people. So all in all, I thought it was a wonderful exhibition because it was, although it was moving and made you think about the Holocaust, it was still suitable for young people. That there was a school party in there while I was there, and they must have only been about 7 or 8 years old, and it wasn't harrowing in a way that would give people nightmares. So it really was excellent. And the two things I would like to reflecting on about the Holocaust are, one, what happened to the Jews would have started off as a refugee crisis. That is how it would have affected us. In the 1930s, there would have been a lot of Jewish people trying to leave Germany, and I don't know what the press would have been doing, but they might have been saying, we haven't got room for all these immigrants. So there's one thing. When you've got immigrants, reflect on why they are leaving. Are they leaving just for a better life economically, or are they fleeing something terrible in their country of origin? And the second thing is, in order to do what the Nazis did to the Jews at Auschwitz, you have to dehumanize people. So you have to say these people are less than human. And so whenever we hear someone saying that a group of people are less than human, we must fight against it, because once you believe that people are less than human, you don't treat them as human. That's quite a long video on my bias, but I think everything had to be said. Okay. Thank you for listening.